thanking eamba to invite me and all of you here. And I think it's a nice way to invite ourselves to be here as well, and just land and sit on the chair. If you're on a chair, some of you have got beautiful background. Yeah, take the time to land and connect with whatever is present in the moment. Maybe also connect with what brings you here. Slowly bring your attention to what is really dear to us, this soft, gentle breath that is forever there for us, coming in and out. And really welcome the breath breathing into us, life coming in gently. And today we're going to speak about life in amazing expression through our children. So slowly you can open your eyes and come here. Wherever you are, thank you for being here. So how are we going to do that? There's a lot to speak about, and we have a small group, we can have a conversation. It seems like we have more than one person here with maybe perhaps grandparent. So we have, yes, so many generations. How do you want to start? Do you want me to say who I am and where I come from? And
yeah, you can talk about, I mean, we wanted to do that as an interview, but you can start maybe with introducing shortly yourself, your background, and how, Michel, I think this is a good start.
I'm a Belgian living in Portugal for the last 2 years, and I'm what people can call an educational psychologist. I was a teacher trainer. I've done a lot of things. I had a very big business in the UK selling Belgian waffles, which is an interesting side in terms of this. It's not actually a side way, but it really brought me into mindfulness in a way. It's an interesting discussion. My interest in parenting has come because I used to work with very difficult teenagers when I was young. I worked with autistic children. And when I became a parent, before becoming a parent, I was teaching parents to be parents. And it seems so obvious to me. I was speaking with really difficult kids. And when I became a father, all my good theories and ideas just somehow evaporated. And it was very difficult for me. And this child was challenging me and my wife. So we had the opportunity to join a parenting group in the UK in the 80s, 84, which actually transformed our life. It's a very simple program, 8-week program, which was at that time, I would think I'm still using 90% of that program today. Developed by two incredibly inspired people, a couple. And from there on, I then became a tutor, a facilitator in that program. It was called the Parent Network. And then the trainer of trainer. And then I had businesses. I was doing it on and off. And my journey went to, I worked in many places in Africa, Central Asia, Europe. And especially I was teaching teachers in Central Asia, and the teachers were saying, we can use these skills and attitudes with our children at home as parents. So they asked me to whether I could develop a parenting program, and I just took out that program on my shelf, this red green book, and I started teaching again, that program in a very different context, which was Tajikistan, in the middle of the Pamir region, middle of the mountain. And it was quite extraordinary. And then as I work with teenagers again, and it's like everywhere in the world, teenagers, they have more and more challenged by life. There's suicide, and they asked me to find a program to help teenagers to deal with their anxiety and stress. And I didn't know much about it. And I mean, circumstances brought me into MBSR. I didn't know anything about it. I wanted to have a certificate, to be like a certified something, to be able to say, look, I've got something that is certified. And so I did in 3 months, the five day retreat. I'd never done a retreat. I did an 8-week program. I didn't know it existed. And I just did it to get a certificate. So I went through it, not realizing that actually it had slowly, like homeopathy, had an effect on me. And then I joined the program in Belgium with the University of Brussels. But that's what brought me to mindfulness. And slowly, because of my experience in my learning, really, I was starting to adapt, implement, introduce some of mindfulness elements in my program. Because I thought my program was already very mindful, but there were subtleties. And slowly it became bigger and bigger. And I would say it's changed from a skill-based program to a mindful-based program, slowly. From my own learning and exploration and experience, really. It's like matching, echoing, mirroring who I was, where I was. So that's what brought me here. And I'm sure you asked me, you all seems to be knowing about parenting, but my experience in the 80s, so it's back 40 years ago, and my experience today as a facilitator of this program, it's really changed, because I can feel the stress of the parents. So the stressful reduction base of my program initially was 1 session. It's now 4 sessions over 8 sessions, because parents just can't stop. They just can't stop. They can't do 5-minute meditation as an invitation. They don't have the time, because they don't have the time to do so many other things. And so we ask them to do something else in addition to all the things they're doing. It seems like it's another pressure. So I needed to adapt the program in a way that to say, look, no, we are not doing meditation, or we're not doing exercise, we're not practicing, is to find how we can be present, the stopping. And I've developed a 6-step program, a step model, which I can share afterwards. But just the idea of stopping was creating anxiety. I can't stop. I have to be with my kids. I have to drop them somewhere. I have to cook. I have to do all this. So that's when slowly I changed vocabulary from stopping to pause, for example. And even that is, what does it mean, pausing? So I deal with parents from different backgrounds in different parts of the world who have never been in touch with the idea of mindfulness. And I realized that some of our vocabulary is quite alien to many of them. It's an interesting exploration to see how can I bring that quality of presence and using words that are their words. So that's, you see, I've started. I'm stopping.
Yeah, thank you,
can ask
Michel.
questions.
Yeah.
You can ask
Yeah.
questions, but
Yeah.
That's where I'm with that.
So interesting. So one thing you brought into the room is this understanding and reality that you notice a shift from the beginning to now. Basically, the public is dealing with other things is very different. So we have to address and bring mindfulness in a different sort of package. You said that you changed the package. Yeah, but so you said already a lot about journey from MBSR or whatever, and then moving from skill-based training into mindfulness-based training. Can you explain that a bit more? And how is that maybe changed during the last 40 decades? You said, we all, I think we can agree with that, and it's impossible for people to say to pause.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the model I used that was developed in the 80s is still makes the basis of the model that I'm using now. So it has many, many different elements, which are, I think, essentially really about respect of. John Kabat-Zinn in his book on parenting speaks about sovereignty. And it's about how can we meet another human being who is different in a context which is the context of life going really speedy and the family life with all its challenges. How can we go from reacting to our children doing things which we don't like, which we can call them behaviors, bad behaviors, into actually really transform the relationship into helping the child itself, to him or herself, to understand that they have the means, the resources to first realize that they, as human being, whatever they do have an impact, a consequence. We can call this conditionality in our words. But so the model I use is very simple. So you can imagine, all of us can imagine a situation, challenging situation, a conflict, something a child does, a lot of period like transitions. We want the children to be ready on time to go to school, for example, and they're still in their pajamas. So it's very simple, but situations. Now, what do we do then? So there's the reacting place, which is coming from generations, which is coming from stress, which is to blame the child. Because of you, I'm going to be late, you are lazy, you are this, you are, okay? Which really, in real time, doesn't really help the situation because it makes it worse. So the way I start is to say, there's no right or wrong. Another thing that I notice, and more, is that parents are reading a lot of books and they are seeking answers to their question from Google, and they speak about mindful parenting and compassionate parenting, etc. They don't know what it means, so they can't put that into practice, and then they feel they are really bad parents. So when I asked at the start what brings them there, is to become better parents. It's a lot of judgment originally as we start. So change from you do the best we can with the means we have. There's no bad or good. This is just a revolution in them, in their process. So we start from very concrete experiences of, okay, what happens to just now? So you're going late, you've been late. What happened in you? What happened in me? First, stopping. It's a question they've never asked themselves. How do you feel? What happened in your thought? I don't know. Yeah, so there's a stopping there. To realize that actually the issue is not with the children, but it's really how we react to the situation. But we can't say that at the beginning. It's too abstract. So we take an example. So let's take a very simple example. A child eats something. It happens like last week. We had barbecue. There's a 3-year-old knocked a plate. The plate fell down. It broke. The parents, there were 20 parents there. Wow, why you do that? You again, blaming the child. We can't trust you. This is a 3-year-old child. Okay, now let's decipher that. When we blame the child, we blame the whole child. You have done that. You are this or that. Yeah. So I start my program by saying, how do you feel when I said you are this or you are that. I don't feel good. I don't feel good. I feel attacked. Okay, so what do you need else to? Then very quickly, people universally, but I'm in Tajikistan or Australia or Ivory Coast, people will say what they need is to be listened to not be judged, to be respected. So this is a fundamental need and yearning that everybody has, which I think is a wonderful starting point, because we need to feel seen in a way. So I take some time to connect with that feeling of being seen, and when it happens to you, how do you feel? Yeah. So we are attacking the child. The child is having a behavior. The behavior is the plate falls down. So we criticize the child because of their behavior. But the behavior, things falling is not a problem. Sometimes things are falling and it breaks. That's a problem. Sometimes things are falling like a ball. It's not a problem. So the behavior is not a problem. What is the issue and not a problem is the consequence of the behavior. So when it breaks down, it breaks. We have to clean it. It makes noise. It costs money, whatever. And then we bring the attention, focus from blaming the child to actually what happens, but really consequence of what happens. And now what happens is that it has a consequence on both the parents. I feel bad because all these parents are other people are looking at me. I feel bad because I'm judging my child, at what all these things happening. So I use that as part of the process to say, how do you feel right now? I feel annoyed. I feel, connect with your feelings, even before connecting with your thoughts. Suddenly the stopping is natural then, the connection. And then look at what happens. And what happens is that the plate is broken. So deal with the plate and help the child deal with the plate. So the whole transformation is we go from a blaming situation to saying, oh, the child, even a 3-year-old, can go and pick up a dustpan and brush, and we can brush it off together. It's okay, it's finished. And we have helped the child to deal with the situation, which is unpleasant, in a way that is not blaming, but it's actually encouraging the child to become more responsible. It's helping the parent to have a different relationship with the situation. It's like, no, it's not like top down, it's helping the child to grow. And suddenly the relationship changes, and then we come to a place where there's not the problem is no longer the problem is open to a solution. So what can we do now? The plate is on the floor. What can we do now? Well, we can brush it off, for example. And so what we do, we somehow encourage the children to take responsibility for the action, but also anticipate the next time it happens, the child will go and pick up the dustpan and brush, hopefully. If not, we do it again. And then there's so many situations which parents say, you know, we've told him 1,500 times and still the same stuff happening, that our children don't listen. Of course, children don't listen because we don't listen to them. But once we listen to them and we deal with the situation in a different way, so that's where the power of this program is really very palpable, is that now there's always a problem. I mean, we don't call it a problem anymore. We call it a situation, or unpleasant, pleasant, difficult, and start the whole process. But I find that process, which is very neat, very smooth, needs time, it needs practice. We use a lot of language, speaking about a lot of language. For example, often parents would say to their children, don't do this. Huh? Or you're a good boy, you're a good girl. You know? Don't do this. Take care, you're going to fall. It's just an embedded command. But the language we use, the child falls and we scold the child. I say, I told you you're going to fall. Of course, you just told me you're going to fall. I'm falling. The brain just can't hold opposite, especially a 3-year-old doesn't have the cognitive ability to do that. So changing from things that we don't want to happen, like don't do this, don't scream, don't shout, don't do this, don't hit your brother, all this list of don't, to, okay, now what do you want to happen? So that is such a difficult thing to ask parents. What is it that you want to happen? I don't want them to shout. What do you want to see? What do you want to feel? What do you want to hear? Very observable, in an observable way, so that you can describe it to the child. A child, don't shout, speak softly. Just this exercise is really a revolution for many, many parents. And because of the habits ingrained for, again, generations, the habits, just when we're in stress, we just react and go, don't do this, and we shout and we scream. And what I'm trying to encourage and invite people is say, okay, it's fine, it's okay to shout. It's happened anyway. But not really, has that been really helpful? Did you get what you wanted? That's when parents just stop, say, yes, of course, no, it doesn't. I don't like it. And then slowly we introduce this element of language. We introduce element of feelings, of acknowledging feelings, of focusing not on the child, but on the behavior, not on the behavior, but on the consequence of the behavior, then on the intention, what is it that you want to happen, see it to happen. And all this, slowly, parents who put that in practice, they really change, the relationship changes. Within themselves, there's less guilt, there's more empowerment, there's more self-confidence, there's more ease. So parents come home with more willingness to meet their children rather than feeling obsessed that things are going to go wrong. So there's a really shift of awareness, shift of attention, shift of mind shift for many. So that's, I can describe to you the 6 step. I've got a model if you want to see it. I've got it here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michel, for your generosity. But maybe there are already some questions before we move on. Maybe
yes.
Already here we have some curiosity.
Does it make sense, first of all? I don't know, because...
Yeah, very much. I mean, my felt sense is just like, also you can reparent yourself. So this shift from blaming to accountability and responsibility, and it starts with us. We talk this way to ourselves. So, and so how we can shift from, self-blame to becoming, responsible for our action. And so we also do that with other people and with our kids. So this is what is emerging for me as well,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so the mindfulness part is really attitudinal. So
Yeah,
because trust comes, trust the child, they can do it.
No judging, you said.
No judging, compassion, from blaming to compassion. All those attitudes, and all this happened in the present. It doesn't happen in the past, future. Parents are so much in the past and in the future. And, just this a few seconds of is such a powerful liberation. So I do very small snippets of sitting down meditation. They love it. They can't go, many can't go longer than 3 minutes initially. And I've asked them, I give them guidance that I ask them to listen into the week, in between the weeks. The majority don't listen to the guidance. Even it's 3-minute guidance, they don't do it. So it's attitudinal. It's a mindset. It's a way of being. It's Yes, Katerina.
Yeah, what I got from how you explained, it was one of our questions, how you change skill-based program to a mindfulness-based program. So you just explained that. And what I understand is that actually the parents are still becoming more skillful, but it is from another place. It's from the place of feeling how it is. It's from the place of pausing. It's from the place of the mindfulness principles that we honor.
Yes.
Right?
And
there is
yes.
one thing that I remember reading the book of Suzanne Beugels, the one where she wrote finding a place to be in a world of to-do, something like that. She said, we never stop being a child. So I think that resonates with what you said, Teresa. We also have to parent ourselves. And when I see parents going out of their mind, I see that they don't have the space anymore to honor those principles that you just named. I mean, they're not pausing anymore. There's no possibility. They would like to just take their child and put it to the ceiling.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So what is it that then is, I do get it, how you made the program from skill-based to mindfulness-based. But in those hot moments when no mindfulness principle can calm the fire, is it that they need to practice longer or what?
So in terms of practice, so I spend a lot of time, so I work online, but I spend a lot of time on one-to-one with the group. So for example, Katrina, you would say, today, this happened with my child, I just lost it. And then I would be with you, alongside you, guide you to say, okay, now, Katrina, how do you feel right now speaking about that? Very interestingly, I've got fathers in my group who don't know the difference between feelings and thinking. They don't know feelings, yeah? So how do you deal with a child? Feeling, yeah? But so that's where I think the mindfulness, for me, I've learned it's not just about feelings, but it's all about the sensation in the body. So I go, so what's happening in your body right now? It's like, and then we go one step at a time and say, what happened with the child? So there's what is your need? Also, what do you need at this moment in time? You know, I need space, I need this, I need that. So there's a lot of acknowledging. And I'm practicing, although I'm not speaking about it openly initially, but afterwards I'm actually describing what I'm doing. So I'm saying, look, what I'm doing right now is acknowledging your feeling. How do you feel when I do that? And that the group is watching as well. Huh? And so they're learning from observing what I'm doing, but also from each other. And then it's okay. Katrina, is really okay. You've blown your top off. It's fine. I mean, it's okay. Now, because you've done it, but it's not just because you've done it, but because we do it. I mean, that's the only thing we have at this moment in time. So, but now let's look at what else could you have done? And then we go slowly into, and then I'm asking, okay, now take this position of your child. What do you think your child is feeling right now? So that's, so then, what is your child's needs? What does it need from you at that moment in time? So there's a question that I'm asking in the process, is to say, who is the most affected in the situation? So is it Katarina, the child, or both of you? Because often the parent is the most affected by what the child is doing. And the parent can't deal with strong emotions that's just bursting out. So if you are most affected, you need to look after yourself first. Very quickly, just acknowledge how you feel. Then attend to your child. You can't do it. So speaking about skills, what I've noticed, you know, I'm an NLP teacher. I used to teach NLP. So it's about very skill-based. But if the skill is not practiced with the heart, it doesn't work. So I can say things very nicely, you know, instead of saying don't, and I'm describing, but I do it in a blameful way. It doesn't work. Yeah, but I'm using the skill. So again, here's come down to your heart. Like, how are you feeling right now? How is the child feeling? And it's difficult, and you don't know, and it's overwhelming. And then tell me, how are you feeling? I feel so upset. I feel this, yes, and it's okay. And when you say that to me, what happens? So it's like a, you know, a dialogue, that exploration dialogue, and then there's a mother to say, okay, the child is now, I mean, the parent is in equilibrium in their brain and emotions. Say, now, imagine I was your child. How do I feel? How do I feel? Can you tell me how I feel? Tell me, how do I feel? Do you feel upset? Yes. Or you feel upset, but, there's a but. What is the but about? You're no longer with the child. So slowly again, and we come back to that really basic stuff for saying, be with yourself, be with the child, come back with that. And that's where compassion comes naturally. And then come in your heart, not your head. When you say, because the head takes you away, it should, the head takes you the should. Speak about the shoulds once the situation is calmed down. You can speak about solution. When the child and you, I don't know if you know the brain model that Daniel Siegel, he's, you know, some of you may know, very beautiful model to say that, okay, the limbic brain, emotional brain, the thinking brain, when we are emotionally flooded, the thinking brain is hijacked by the emotion brain, and so the emotion is taking over. The thinking is not there anymore. So by naming things, slowly what's happening is that there's a reconnection between the thinking brain and the emotional brain, and we go to a space of equilibrium. But so what I'm doing is that very often parents are like this, the child is like this, and we are like this. We can't deal with that. The child needs us here. How do you go back here? How do you go back here? How do you go back here? Then you can deal with the child from that place. So that's the heart bit, that's the thinking bit, that's the heart reconnecting, that's the pause, that I'm okay, you're okay. My child needs me now more than ever, because otherwise it's going to explode. I need to be here. It has to be quick. Often it has to be quick, otherwise it explodes. I need to be. Now I can deal with myself afterwards. I was sad, I was annoyed, I was worried. Let's deal with it afterwards. But here your child needs you now here. So that's where the skill is accompanied, embedded in the attitude. And the skill doesn't work if the attitude is, if the attitude, the heart part is not functioning or emerging or working. It doesn't happen. It doesn't work because the child can't hear that. The child is totally upset. It's not in that place to hear. We need to help the child to hear us, to give them a solution. So often parents are caught up in solutions. It very quickly, we need to stop crying, stop this, you have to do that, you have to do your homework. Yeah. The child is not ready to hear that. Help the child to hear you. Yeah. So I teach a formula, which is part of the 6th step, which is, you know, imagine, Katrina, or any one of you say, you know, Katrina, when you do this, I feel happy also. We share happiness too, joy. When you do this, I feel really happy because the consequence. And now, when there are issues of behavior, I would say, you know, Katrina, when you do this, I'm really confused. And when you bang the door, whatever, with teenagers, I can't hear you. Or it's really difficult for me. And I can really appreciate that you are really upset right now. I've said something that you didn't like, acknowledging the others. So sorry. And then the sixth part of my formula is to say, now, what do you think we can do about this? How are we going to solve this problem together? So we become a solving family unit, you know, not a fighting family unit. And then suddenly, of course, with teenagers, with young kids, even 3 years old, we can find solutions that are appropriate with their age. So that's the process. It's new. Sorry, again, I spoke. I didn't ask. Teresa, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, my question is, because I also meet parents that are very self-judgmental. So I'm just inquiring, how, without the practice, how can people to start with, and not, you know, the reason why people disconnect from their feelings because they're difficult, and probably what is the feeling is, I'm a bad parent, I am a bad person, so they get into that narrative, and it's unbearable, so they better switch off with the consequence. So how do you, you know, without the practice, because the practice is about embracing the feelings, and the first step is embracing the fact that there is a self-judgment and self-blaming, and I feel miserable, and I own it, you know. And then, yeah, so how is it possible without the practice to start a process like that?
So I'm creating a space. My first session is actually, we don't speak about behavior. We speak about aspiration as parents. And all parents, wherever I go, at least those who come to my group, they want the best for their children. That's it. It's beautiful, isn't it? Such a recognition, first of all, that all of us here, there's 10 of us here, we all want the best for our children. Now, the issue is that there's a big gap between what we want and what's happening. Now, very quickly, we realize all of us, 10 of us, are actually in the same boat here. We're not lonely, alone. The guilt comes as, I'm the only one who is a bad parent. When I look at other people, they seem to do well. And when I read books, it seems so easy and blah, blah. So my second question I'm asking is to think about situation with their children that they really like, you know, something that your child has done that you find just touch you, makes you happy, gives you joy. And suddenly, my child is not just bad. And they don't notice, you know, noticing the positive, the good in the child. It's taken as normality, for granted, but we don't pay attention to it. So that's quite nourishing. The third question I'm asking is to say, now, what is it that you're doing as a parent that you really appreciate? It can just be go shopping and think about something that your child is, what they're going to eat, you know, how they're going to sleep. All these moments, again, which we take for granted, but we are constantly there for our children. Even we don't want to cook, but we still cook for them. Yeah. So it's celebration to say. So I don't start with difficult parts. I start with uplifting to say, then they look at each other and say, yeah, actually, we're not that bad. And then that creates a space to say, now, there are situations also which are difficult. So the words I use is more difficult or challenging or affecting us. And we can deal with that. So it's a question of options now. The issue is that we are locked in a reaction and we don't have options in what we can do. So this program is going to help you find options. Yeah. Now, how do we deal with feelings? By me really asking somebody. So I would say here, is there anybody who has a situation that can share? And I say, how do you feel about it? It's like, and then I would say little words, you know. And how do you feel when I say that to you? I feel good. So that's how I start speaking, but to connecting. And yeah, so introducing slowly. And then once they know how they feel, there's a whole session, actually three sessions on acknowledging the child's feeling. It's very difficult for parents to do that because they're in the situation, in the blaming, in the solution, they're not with the child. So it's like, go down on your feet. They all know how to do it. So what's happening, you see, it's an interesting, I think it's lovely to have people online. It's quite positive. So I would say, Teresa, speak to me about one of your children. Tell me the situation very briefly. And I would ask you, how do you think the child is feeling? Okay, just give me words. And I would ask everybody here in the group and say, what do you think Teresa's child is feeling? So Gay would say, feeling this. Magdalena would say, feeling this. So they say, everybody has got a different way of giving feelings because everybody feels a different way, and that's okay. Yeah. And then I'm going to ask you, Teresa, how does it feel? Is it you think the way your child is feeling? And you would say, actually, really, it's not really that, it's that. Say, okay, because you know your child better. But you see, naturally, with the help of the group, you then connect with the child and it becomes more, because we all know how to do that. But it's difficult for us to do it with our children. So I would say then to Teresa, Teresa, if I was your child, how would you say that to me? You feel sad, and I would ask the group, say, when Teresa is telling me this, how do you hear that? How do you hear that? Somebody will say, there's still a blaming, there's something. So I say, Teresa, how is it? What's happening to you? And say, yeah, I'm blaming, whatever. So now come back to the feeling. How do I really feel? Go back to your heart. You feel really sad. You feel really annoyed. You feel disappointed. You feel whatever. And it lands properly. It lands to me and say, yeah, that really works for me. So it's trial and error together, group, this safe environment, helping each other. Because feelings are okay, there's no blaming anyway. In my group, there's no blaming. So they feel it. They feel the compassion coming. And then slowly they allow themselves to feel it, to express it, to feel, it feels so good. Then they have to try it out, at least one feeling a day or during the week. Slowly. And then they would come the week after, say, I tried this, it didn't work. Okay, how did you do it? Listen to your voice. Yeah. And I would slowly, as the group evolve and unfold, I would ask people, say, okay, now, how do you hear that? People are very honest and giving a feedback very openly in that sense. Slowly embed it, slowly. Through example.
Michael, we have a question from Angela. Maybe, Angela, it has already been answered in the meantime because Michael continued about the other steps, but maybe you can say a few words. And then David also raised his hand.
Yes. Okay. So I can show you the 8 weeks, the process of the 8 weeks. I'll do that afterwards. I have a slide. If you can give me the possibility of being a co-host, I can show it to you. David,
I think you already have it.
I do have it. Great. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have a question, David?
Thanks, Michelle. Hi, everybody. My name is David McMurtry. Like Magdalena, I'm based in Croatia, but as you can tell from my voice, I'm not a Croatian or my accent. Originally, I'm from the UK, from Scotland. I too was a teacher educator in the UK, and I've been living in Zagreb since 2015. Listening to you, Michel, it sounds, how you do this sounds really soft and gentle and easy and kind and compassionate and slow-paced and based on real life as the starting point, and that sounds really great. And listening to your description of how you go about it, it seems to me that there's at least 3 areas that your participants are working on, and that's their parenting skills, their self-knowledge, and also their ability to be mindfully aware in the present. And thinking from a mindfulness training point of view, they work on things that take a lot of time, like working with our natural tendency to be reactive, working with our reactivity, for example, learning to be kind to yourself, learning to focus upon your own, the parent's own well-being, and being soft and gentle with themselves, and also working with difficult things. You know, they may have had negative experiences of parenting themselves. You know, they may be copying their own experience of parenting, and so they need to be able to see their own trauma, for example. And as Teresa said, that takes mindfulness practice, and it takes quite a long time, and it also takes a sense of community. I imagine that your participants, once they've done your 8-week course, they don't want to leave you. They want another course. They want to stay with you. As you said, it's on the parenting journey, and they also want community. So my question really is, you know, how do you meet those needs in the longer term? It sounds to me like you're building a community that people really would value and want to remain part of for a long time.
You know, that's such an interesting question that I think that's one of my weaknesses. I started the whole process of so there's a community happening, but I'm not engaged enough. I'm doing too many things actually. But so I'm coming back to this place, and I want to develop it much more. And I wanted to train tutors or facilitators to then use my program and become facilitators. And I had 12 people who had registered. It was just before COVID. It had to start in the UK. Everything was organized, and just COVID came, paf, and I couldn't meet them. And it didn't work. It didn't happen. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. And so I had a clear model of developing an organization, but it didn't happen. So maybe now that I'm somehow retired, it can happen. But there are many people who wish to become facilitators and go through the program at another level. Yeah, I think it's a weakness of a failure. I would not say it failure, but it's heavy on my heart. Many parents. So now what I'm doing, I say there's an 8-week program. I call it part 1, and I'm going to then do a part 2, which is going deeper into it and go deeper in it. Yeah, and then what's interesting, David, and for all of us here, is about this introduction to mindfulness. So I've invited many of my parents to then do an MBSR program, and many have taken it. So that's really a big jump for many of them. I had people in India joining at 12 at night to do the MBSR program, and so that's also something that's happened. And many of the parents have become coach in themselves, like they've taken their life at a different level. So it has had an impact in many ways. So have I answered your question, David? There's another, you speak about 3 elements. I think there's another element which is really hard to create this relationship with the child. So give ourselves different options. There's there's a lovely saying in the NLP world, I'm sure you've heard it, you know, the definition of communication is the feedback you get. If what you get is not what you want, change the way you communicate. And so if what you're doing doesn't work, and you know very clearly it doesn't work because the child is not responding the way you wish to, then you need to change something. I don't know what. There's no magic wand, unfortunately, but that means come back. And that's where the coming back and the pausing again and again comes. Each situation is different. Yeah, my child loved spaghetti last week and I cooked it with all my love. And they say, I don't want to eat that. This is really not nice. How do you feel? I mean, but you liked it last week. Yeah, they liked it last week and not today. And you have cooked for them. What do you do now? You're not going to cook another meal. What's happening? These are such life experiences to show things. Kids grow, situations are different. We can't expect them to be in a certain way. We want them to be a certain way. It's life. It's really a mirror for life, a life learning experience. So people have to deal with that as well now. So it's quite complex. It's intense. It's yeah. Interesting. Also, what's happening is many mothers rather than fathers. Sometimes fathers come to the next group, but then the issues are: I do this with my children at home. My husband or my partner doesn't like what I'm doing because it's just going against their beliefs and their values. So now we've got yet another level. It's how do you deal with your partner? It's another level. In India, I had a family of 4 generations in one house. Those very nice, willing young parents, you know, they were compassionate, blah, blah, the whole thing. But the great grandfather was still living in the house. And the tradition is we respect and we listen to the great grandfather. And the great grandfather said, that doesn't work. They would give sweets to the child. We don't want sweet. And we can't tell the great grandfather, don't give sweet to our children. How do you deal with this situation? You see, I can't deal with the situation, I'm not in it. So I can only help them deal with it. Yeah, interesting. Do you want to go to this? Where is it? It's not here. I prepared it. Presentation. Present. Sorry. Huh?
In the meantime, I just wanted to say that some of the things that you say also happen with an 80-year-old. So it's not necessarily only a child that you deal with in this case. It's grown-ups as well.
So some of principle, this is really something we look at. Like children are 100% important, adults are 100% important, and the relationship is 100% important. So there's many parents now forget themselves in this. They just do everything for their children, and they become, many of them, children's slave. Somehow the children are taking all their focus of attention, and they don't deal with themselves, and they don't care about themselves. So there's a session, which is session 5, which I look at needs and wants. It's an interesting question, actually, this one. What's the difference between a need and a want? You know, I want a new phone. I need a new phone. No, you don't need a phone. You don't need a new phone. You want a new phone. So it's about saying, what is it that you need? Teenagers, you know, I need a new phone. It's not that the new phone they need recognition, they need the relationship. They need to be seen. They need this and this and this. And so when we start looking at the wants rather than the the needs behind the want, then we can deal with the solution. I don't have the money to buy a new phone, but now all those needs that you have, how else can you meet them? I can't cook a new meal right now. You don't like my spaghetti. I don't have any other things than spaghetti, at least they have not cooked. So that's what do you need is food. What else? What do we do now? And we ask this child to help us find a solution in that. So this is an interesting part of as well. It's a more a principle. So what I do is a 6-step within the 8 weeks. So the first week is aspiration, is really setting up the scene, we're meeting each other. And then quite quickly, already in the first session, I speak about pausing and just connecting, and that's just breathing. And I explain that it just doesn't have to take 45 minutes. There's an interesting, Katrina, you were there when this Jessica, Rebecca, a teacher in France who has done a lot of work, research on mindfulness.
Shankland. Rebecca Shankland.
Shankland. I've worked with her actually. She sent me some of her teachers to my program, interestingly. But what she discovered is that even a 2-3 minute practice a day would make a difference for parents who are cold, parents who have got burnout, parenting burnout. And she asked parents, when you're cooking or when you're washing up, just look at the water running. Feel when you open the door, just feel the handle on your hand. Feel your feet. So it's not just breathing, it's about these very small moments of connecting what's happening in the moment, and teach that. Just practice that. So the pause here, it's pause, breathe, and connect. This doesn't take any time. I don't have time to do that. You're still breathing. You can just connect with your feet on the floor, and that's enough. So the second session is about actually it's not here acknowledging the child's feelings, but acknowledging our own feelings. How do I feel? It's about introducing the whole thing about what is a feeling. Feelings are not good or bad. Feelings are just an expression of something's happening. It's a message. And then just connect and don't judge. It's like, it's okay. That's just this principle of acknowledging without judgment. So the third session is about language, and I introduced the idea of the don't. There's a important part on labeling, which is, I think, very, very interesting and powerful. The whole thing, you're good boy, you do this, you lazy, you that, whatever. The whole list can come up. You never listen to me. All those labels, which actually do not help the child to change their behavior. They fit them in. I'm still dealing with my own labels. I'm 67, so I know the power of those labels. So how do you change, rather than say, don't do this or you are this, is that describe the child's behavior. So introducing behavior, focusing on the behavior through words, through the language, through focusing. Because at the end, which is stage 6, we are going to find a solution. And so I ask parents to be patient, because they want the solution day one. They can't have that if the process is not looked at and explored enough. So we start looking at the behavior. We start then looking at the effect of the behavior, and the effect of the behavior is the consequence, really. And here, it's also for session 4-5, we are looking at needs and wants also. What is a need? And here I'm asking the parents to fill in a form and to look at their needs and how they manage to meet their needs. Like last time they did something they really like doing that they used to do, for example, going to the movie or something like that. And see how they can meet their needs in this life situation, considering that they don't have time, they have to work, blah, blah, all this stuff. And some start doing yoga again, or some start doing just read a book again, or very simple, or take a bath. Oh, wow, take a bath. I had this parent crying, I haven't taken a bath for 10 years. It changed my life, just taking a bath. Ah, so simple. So caring for oneself, the whole part of that. And then we are now ready to start looking at the child, only session 6, and acknowledging the feelings of the child. Because that's really the trigger. It's not what they do often, it's how they're doing it. I mean, reacting to the feeling. And when the child's feeling is acknowledged, they can just then relax and then feel seen and then feel soothed, and then we can soothe them. So we need to acknowledge their feelings. And so a lot of work being done on that. And then we're looking at session 7 at the consequence. How do we deal with that? How do we then find a solution together? And then 8 is recombining. We're working on really difficult life situations. So there's like a formula, which is, I'm teaching them, you know, it's like when this happens or when you do this, I feel because, for example. So ask them to practice that. And it can go, you know, I feel this when you do that. It doesn't have necessarily to follow that chronological order. But you can't do that if you don't acknowledge the child. So if the child is not acknowledged, the child will not hear what you're saying. So you can't say, when this happens, you do this, I feel because. So I said, you know, the child, when you really feel annoyed, you feel this, and when you do this, I feel because. Yeah. So that's the practice. So the type of questions I'm asking is that, like what could you have done before the situation? Really anticipation about this transition time. Be prepared. Parents are not preparing themselves. Prepare the clothes before at night so that in the morning they are ready to go to school, for example. Tell them that in 5 minutes you're going to have a meal so that they know that they will have to stop, for example. How can you involve the child in the cooking? David, you spoke a little bit about, Katerina, we are children. You know, parents don't play with their children anymore. So it's really an invitation again to do things in a way that is pleasant. Like kids need this relationship, they need this connection. So play games with them. Don't necessarily watch TV with them, but ask them to set the table, ask them to cook with you, ask them to clean with you, whatever you do it with them. Go shopping with them. And something also that I'm introducing, which I did a lot with my own children, is do things with your children that you like doing. So I took my children camping, I took my children swimming, I took my children cycling. My children are now cycles with their children. It's funny. And they go camping with their children. But so the things I wanted to do, which took time, I did with my children. And I involved them with that. And that's really such a nice way to care for me. A lot about the tonality of the language. Not just use this phrase, but how you use it. It has to come from that place of openness, of heartfulness. Yeah. Now, the question that are interesting here is, what are your feelings? But who is most affected by the situation? Is it you? Difficult to realize. What is the child doing? Focus on the behavior. What is the effect on you? on the situation, on the environment. So you open up. You know, when you do this, it makes noise for everybody. What are your needs? How you meet them needs? What are your child's needs? And so we go back again and again and again. And that's the principle. Yeah, again, the questions. And we practice this again and again and again. That's the model. That's how I've introduced it slowly. So does that answer your question? Of course, you need to go through it. Huh? And it's a model that changes. I'm still refining it. Yeah.
I think it would be lovely to have that exercise, like you just said before. You would do this, you would do that. And since we are such a small group, it might be possible. I mean, let's take the questions of each one here first.
Yes.
But maybe we can have a small case.
Of course, that's really wonderful. David, I'm not aware of that book. No, Peter Hoffman. I don't know. Yeah, do you have any question or maybe a situation, and then we can look at it? Impromptu, you see? Because I never know what's going to come either. So, yeah.
Maybe.
Yes, maybe.
I just want to share my experience because I've been doing a project for parents now for 2 years together with my colleagues. I'm a psychologist, so we were doing this together. And in the educational part of this project, it is for local community here in eastern part of Croatia, in Slavonia. And a lot of parents are from rural parts. And we put a lot of effort to engage people to come. They didn't come.
Yeah.
But when they came, those who came, in this, what I wanted to really to share is this educational part, what I'm now, while I'm listening to it, glad we put it that way. We put it in 3 parts. The first, we started with how to take care of yourself. And that was the mindfulness-based part, and I was doing that. And and I just introduced a little simple exercises. I didn't talk about mindfulness very much, but just this little simple exercise about how to stop, how to take a break, how to become aware where you are. And all the time offering them that it is very, very understandable, very, very human, and how to be self-compassionate. And only then you can really turn to your child.
Yes.
You can have a soft voice if you really understand how this soft voice can impact you. Then do it to your child. So my colleague had, who is working with children, this part, how to understand child. And the third part was about communication, how to nurture relationships. But how I see mindfulness, all this is take care of yourself. It is not selfish. And this is the revolution. This is people reveal this. Yes, I can take care about myself, and it is not selfish. No, it is not selfish. It is wise. So, when I was listening to David, it was also in my mind how to make these things a sort of a project that will go on and on and on in some community, because just from one educational event, they will not have very much. How to make these things be part of the school, of the kindergarten, so it become very natural to know these things, So this is what I wanted to share,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you are putting it in this way.
Yes. And there's something else that parents love to hear is that when they look after themselves,
Yeah,
they help their children look after themselves.
that's right. That's
And
right.
so sometimes I'm saying, don't do it for yourself, then do it for your children.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
they do everything for their children. So look after yourself so that you can then be with your children. So do it for your children. And then there's like possibility of doing it a bit more. But this realization that we need as human beings to look after ourselves. And now Katrina, you've organized sessions in the business world, but it's so clear now today that in the business world, people who are thriving are people who've got emotional intelligence, who know what they want to do, who know, so that they know who they are self-aware. They can solve issues there and then, and have the capacity of resilience and all this. So those skills that you and I share with the parents are really helping the future generation. So that's something that tickles their brain. Say, actually, I'm helping my kids there in the future. It's really essential.
Yeah. Let's just say goodbye to Teresa, who needs to get some food and then go back to work. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
And see you soon.
Thank you,
Bye.
Teresa. We
Thank
still
you, bye.
haven't met, huh?
You have to come up to Saradastrel.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. Okay. Do we want to do
We also have a message from Seamus, also needs to go.
Yes, thank you, Seamus.
But,
thank you for being here.
Thank you, Seamus, for being here. But we still have 15 minutes if you all want to stay for a case, maybe.
Yeah. So we'd like to explore an issue you may have with your grandchildren. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Actually, my hearth is both ways. It's my heart goes out to the parents. The mother is my daughter, but
Yes.
also to my grandchildren, because I see their despair when the parents, what I call when they flip.
Yeah.
And they have good intentions. They really have good intentions. But it is that moment when we as mindfulness practitioners or teachers, we learn to pause. And that's the difficult thing. It's also like John Kabat-Zinn said, it's not so difficult to do the mindfulness exercise. The most difficult thing is to get your butt on the cushion. So very difficult also pause. So what is before the pause? What is before?
Yes. Yes. What is before the pause? To realize we need to pause.
Well, actually, that's the mindful moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a question to be asked, huh? I think, generally speaking, parents who come to the program, they come because things happen in their life and they want to change. So they already initiated. So they are there because they want to find solutions. So the ground is already ready for that. So the question is, what is happening right now? It's like, even before pausing, possibly is to ask, what's going on right now? How would you describe this? You don't even have to pause. Like it's crisis, it's difficult, it's just so overwhelming. Like you say, I want to throw this kit on the ceiling now. So just describe. You don't have to pause, just describe the situation. What's happening right now? It's chaos, it's unbearable, it's whatever. whatever. What would be the word you use in that situation? Because that will create pause, possibly. No, I don't know, but you're right. I think the pause as an instruction, as a guided invitation, is a difficult one to follow when we are caught up in the. But it's like it's again training ourselves to stop, to say, what's going on in here? It doesn't work. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like this. I'm fed up. I just want to explode. It's not okay. Then pause. Yes, Magdalena.
You remember me one anecdotal. It was a program for women, not this one, another one. And I taught them this, and they like it. And when we met another time, one of the women said, I started, and she said, I was talking to my kids what interest stuff I was listening to, and I taught them this too. In some situations, she said, I started to yell on them, and they said, Mom, what about this? And they started to laugh. So it was just a tiny moment that changed the situation with no big exercise. And I loved it. I loved it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You see how kids are aware, self-aware,
Yeah.
and they want the best, and they,
Yeah.
wow, that's wonderful. And that's what happened, yeah. The kids have
Yeah.
become the teachers. Angela?
Hi, thank you for this, and thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. I'm wondering if you have parents who are, of course, using the excuse that they don't have enough time. First off, I will say, what will you tell them if they say they don't have enough time, for example, to take your program? And second, I will say, if they ask, well, maybe this isn't for me, maybe you can recommend a book that I can read that may introduce me to these ideas, and then I'll see if I'm interested. So how would you handle those two?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, in my experience, just reading a book doesn't help. You can read a book about how to play an instrument, and the best book, it doesn't help you to play the instrument. So a question would be then, but what do you really want? Are you okay with what's happening? How would you like it to be different? I'm not forcing people to join the group. It's not a necessity for me in terms of economics. So, so again, it's respecting when people say, I don't have the time, I really respecting that they feel very seriously that they don't have the time, and say, yeah, it's tough for you. It seems like you can't do, you can't even take time for yourself. And it's very difficult for you to do that. Just that type of response is already showing, the way I lead this program, and to say, yeah, it might actually really help you. And the thing is that you might find time for yourself, even though you don't have time. And that's the magic of it. Because we don't need time, actually, you're going to learn that you don't need time. You don't need time because it just happens. Actually, that's something you can learn. It's wonderful, actually. Wow, what a liberation. You don't need time. It's one of the things you don't need time for. Just be present. But we need to learn that. We need to discover that. We need to explore that. And it's not easy. Again, there's no promise here. It's no magic wand. People who practice will have success. People who don't practice, it doesn't work. So it needs commitment. So I would ask people to commit to that group. But there's word of mouth also, Angela. Other parents would say, it really helped me. So I'm in that place now where people are actually referring other parents. So
I guess a different way to answer or to pose the second question could be, what book, aside from you being a part of different programs, as some of us have also, what book was really meaningful to you that helped you maybe deepen your theories, foundations, or alternative ideas? What book helped you? Where do you feel really strongly is a great book?
Are you asking me, or you're suggesting to us this parent?
I'm asking you.
Look, there are two books I would recommend. One is, I don't remember the title exactly, but it's how to talk to kids so that
To kids so they will listen.
Yeah.
How to listen to kids
so they will listen. That's written in the 80s. That really influenced the basis of this program, by the way. There's the series of the books that Daniel Siegel wrote on parenting. The author of How to Talk to Kids have also written a book on conflict resolution between children. They call it, I forgot the title. Also very, very, very practical, very systematic. They speak about communication and they speak about attitude, all this. It's very basic. And Daniel Siegel, the book
Whole Brain Child, did he write that one?
The Brain Child. Yeah. But again, when you look at Daniel Siegel's, it's very interesting. When I read it, it's like I thought he had gone to my course. A lot of commonalities, but the way he explains it, this guy is a genius. It's how it simplifies things. For example, name it to tame it. Name the feeling to tame it. There's this type of formula he has. So name it. And then he explains why it works. When you name it, you tame it. It's like you've got your brain becomes connected. Very clear. So I would suggest parents to read those books maybe after the program or with the program, because it's a really nice way to put things together. I have a manual myself, which is no drama discipline. Yeah, that's the book, beautifully explained. For teenagers, Daniel Siegel has written a beautiful book. It's called Brain. My memory is terrible. Brainstorm. Fantastic book for parents with teenagers. On both sides, he explains how the brain changes, the structure of the brain. It's very reassuring to the parents, but also is helping the parents to then teach that to their teenage children, so that they take their life in their hands. So it's on parallel for the parents and for the teenagers. Yeah, I would say those 4 books, Daniel Siegel, that's what I would suggest. And start with that. I mean, that's enough. You don't have to read. There's a lot of book on compassionate parenting, on mindful parenting. I think John Kabat-Zinn's books, it's very general. When he speaks about sovereignty, it's beautifully written, but it's not very practical. There's a beautiful book on mindful parenting, which really, for me, helped me. It's a woman who did a lot of work in different parts of the world, in cultures where she saw that kids were actually very calm and peaceful. And she lived in those communities in Japan and Bali, for example. It's very interesting. I don't know if you've ever been to Bali. I went to Bali. I lived there for a while, and the kids are so peaceful, and something that really struck me. One of the things in the Balinese culture is that kids are not put on the floor for the first 3 months of their life. So they go from one adult to another. Imagine that. And only when they're ready, they then give their name, and they're sacred, they come from heaven. And it's the divine comes to the ground, celebration. That's their second birth. And they teach the kids beautifully. You know, they believe in the kids. The question always they ask is it the best of you? Is it the best you can do? So the belief is that how can we help support our kids to become the best they can be, or the best person they are meant to be? How can they become the best they are meant to be? Beautiful question. And yeah, those kids are amazing. I mean, I've experienced that. But those again are principles. How do you put that in practice? You see, compassionate parenting seems very easy. There's a lot of books in French that are written, very famous. You read those, you can't put them in practice if you don't practice them, because we haven't taught that. We haven't been taught. Our parents didn't do that with us, so automatically we flip to reactive mode. So we need to unlearn that. So that's the work of reparenting. Anyway,
I often have
2 minutes.
participants who want, and I use the model of mindful eating, the hungers, to remind them that it is mind hunger, and it's a distraction to want to read instead of want to practice.
Oh, yeah.
So I really do that. And
Yeah.
on that Balinese thing, that is very interesting. You probably know anthropologist Margaret Mee. She
Yes.
worked in Bali and she wrote a Balinese character. And together with Gregory Bates, and she studied how parenting was done. And for example, there's a great film. It's also called Balinese Character, where she shows how, like you said, the mothering goes from one lap to another. How they deal with sibling rivalry. What is it? Rivalry?
Sibling rivalry. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. It's amazing because the sibling that is the rival calms down while they do this, while they take the little child that he's jealous of, is taken from one lap to another, and he just calms down.
Yeah, that's it. Soothing. That's the 4S. There's one of those.
Which is?
Daniel Siegel, 4S. Soothing, seeing, soothing, safety, security. So the child needs to be soothed, he needs to be seen. So seeing is a whole aspect of acknowledging the sovereignty. I see you. You are really feeling this, etc. And so the child needs to feel that it needs to feel seen. So felt seen. The first part. Soothing is how do you soothe the child so that it just comes back to this balance place. The whole process again of acknowledging, of being there for, not blaming, and explaining, speaking, being alongside. That creates safety. So the child needs to be safe to feel that they can explore the world. So it's going against all the blaming, the labeling, you can't do this, you stopping those. It's about creating an environment which is safe enough for the kids to then explore, knowing their limitations. So it's very mindful, understanding their limitation. And that creates security. So it's theory of attachment. Siegel has worked a lot about attachment. So the security means the kids can feel if you've lost your temper, which happens, even the best cases, they would know that you will come back to a safe place. So that creates safe security. I know that my parents are now angry at me and they're shouting, it's okay, it happens. But because I know they're going to go back to a different mode of being. So they're secure in themselves. and SAQ in the world, so they can explore it. It's fantastic. So 4 S's, yeah, for example. So I'm aware the time is gone.
Yes. But Stasi, I mean, this text of Stasi is wonderful. Rich food for thought and multiple opportunities to create and co-create. Really very nice, Stasi. And that's also the words I would like to extend to you, Michael. Extremely inspiring. I'm very happy I'm here with you. And you mentioned something that you have written. So the mind hunger of mine is asking myself, can I find that? Or should I ask Michael to put a link into the chat?
Look,
You want to share that? You can put it in on the eamba website.
so what's happening, Katerina? I wrote a book which has 13 chapters, and it's been edited until chapter 10, and I've never completed the edition, and that's 5 years ago. So I've never published it. Then the manual I give is a manual that I give while it's like snippets of the course for parents who attend the program. But I can send you some. I mean, I can send you one. It's at 4 pages per session, so it's about 32 pages. You know,
Okay.
so that's what I've written. But it's not. I share it with parents. But what I can do
share it with this community, and also we are gradually stepping up to offer master classes to small groups, like 8 or maybe even 6 people. And maybe after this, we can talk about having a master class, and that would be different. We would have more time and we could share more of this, and maybe that would get you back to edit the other chapters.
Absolutely.
Because I really feel you have, for me, you have a voice that I want to listen to.
Thank
so
you.
if you would care, we would love to stimulate that as eamba.
Thank you very much. And then there's, I mean, I'm going to share with you, my next program starts in September. I don't know if you can publish that. And you can see, so it's 8 weeks, part 1. So it's a process of the 6th step. I asked 145 euros for the program. It's not really very expensive, I think, because I mean, I'm fortunate that I don't need this for economics perspective, but we need commitment. I've given this program free of charge in many places, and we need parents to commit somehow. And so when they commit with money, and even if it's 145 euros too much, we can discuss it. We can have scholarship. Some people pay 50 euros because they can. In Madagascar, it was 20 euros per person. So in Tajikistan, it was 5 euros or 3 euros per person. You know, it's they earn 2 euros a day. So it was more principle. But maybe we can share that, and yeah, let's see how it unfolds. It's very positive for me to hear what you're saying, Katerina. Yeah.
Can I contact you one of these days to make this happen? Okay.
Absolutely. With great
pleasure.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
There's something else.
So
the last thing I want to say, but some of you mentioned it, is to realize that mindfulness can be transformed. This is my passion. I've created that. And many people are stuck with the program, MBSR, whatever. And I think, with all respect, I still teach MBSR, but it's about how can we encourage anybody to do what's right, what's their passion, and do it in a mindful way and offer it. And I think that would create a lot of innovation, I think. And from the basis of MBSR because we've been trained. So we have a really strong base. So it's not compromising that, it's actually enhancing it, I would say. But so Katrina, with pleasure.
And John Kabat-Zinn in April, when he was on the eamba exchange meeting, he encouraged us to innovate. He has always said to contextualize the teaching. So it is not, this is the year in which eamba exchange has put the topic understanding and innovation central. And I think this was a wonderful contribution to that. This is not the last thing we talk about. This is not the last time we talk about that. I will contact you soon. And thank you very much, everyone here. You've already had a preview of this, so that will reach you via a newsletter. Take it seriously. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everybody.
For being here. Thank you.